Chapter 6 in Flash animation, and it's going to be called Creating Interactive Navigation. This is one of my favorite areas, because this is where we get to the area of learning to start using ActionScript. This is where I tell you, welcome to the dark side. Up through chapter 5, we've learned all the tools, or the majority of all the tools, on Flash and how to apply them to our projects on what is called the GUI side, the graphical user interface. And that is the stage. That's the stage. And what we haven't understood yet is that anytime you drag something out of the library onto the stage, or you encapsulate it and create a symbol on it, or you draw a line, or you type some text, it is literally writing code in the background in ActionScript. So we're going to learn a little bit about this. All right, in this chapter, you're going to learn to create button symbols, add sound effects to the buttons, duplicate symbols, swap symbols and bitmaps, name button instances, write ActionScript to create nonlinear navigation. So we'll discuss that in a minute here. Use the code snippets panel to quickly add interactivity, which it means it's already pre-written code, we're just borrowing it. And create and use frame labels and create animated buttons so that the buttons actually have some neat things going. All right, the first thing you need to know is, if you look up here, I have loaded the end project. So let's go take a look at what happens to it. I'm going to run this, test the movie. And here we go. It is a, whoops, didn't mean for it to stick in there. There we go. It's a little program that has buttons, but notice when I roll over the button that we have a fade in of some information on it, don't we? So there's the animation of the button. I roll over the next one, it has a little different information. And it's telling you you have more information by clicking on it. Notice also that when I'm not pointing to the button, it is an arrow key, but as soon as I roll it over, it will give it the finger, right? And that means that this is an active or hot area on the screen that's a button. And when you see the finger, you can click on it, and then it's going to load in a little animation a second symbol and do a little animation. Now this is just moving along the timeline, and what we're going to be using is some code that will jump from one frame out to another area or frame selection and then run this section. Alrighty. We have what's called a main menu or menu button. Main menu button that will then take us back for frame 1 and reset our buttons there. Alrighty. So how do we go see the code? Well, this is the end project, so I'm going to close the test window or the run of it. Oops. I just killed everything. Here, let me bring it back up. You'll notice down here under the first layer has been named Actions. And this is what is called, we do this by what is called convention. This means you don't have to do it, but everyone agrees that the action layer with all the programming in it is very important. So we put it at the very top to make aware anyone who's working on this program other than ourselves that we have code that attention needs to be paid to. So you'll notice that in frame 1 there's a keyframe, and then a little A over top. That means that's where the ActionScript is written. Now understand, if you write ActionScript in frame 1, it is good to go throughout the whole program. We'll discuss more about this in the next episode. So I'm going to highlight frame 1 here. I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to go to Window at my top menu selection, and I'm going to go down to Actions here. All of a sudden, this pops up. Now mine is fairly big, or big enough for you to read. If it's not, let me show you something. When you bring up, and you may mimic me if you have this going here, bring up the action window, doesn't matter what program you're in, Flash program. If you click on this little area on the light gray that looks like a little letter with a down triangle. Click there, you get a huge menu. You want to make sure line numbers are selected, and you want to go down to Preferences. Over here under Font, we want to move that, you want to move yours to 18, 16 or 18 at least. Now I'm an old guy, I need you to at least make this each time 16 because I'm standing behind you most of the time debugging or helping you with your code. So please make it bigger. There's many reasons for doing this also. So I'll select 18 and I OK. And you'll see how, can everybody read this in the back okay? Everybody all right? Notice the very first piece of code. And we're going to take this one piece at a time. Actually, I'm going to make it bigger just so we can have some fun with it. I'm going to make it 20. There, just a little bigger so you can see it. You'll notice that it's the word stop, S-T-O-P, and it turned blue for us. It has open and close parentheses. Yes?
How did you get the actual words to come up? Did you click on one of the...
I went to Window, Actions, and then I have I went to the final, the End project, where the action script is already written.
Okay.
When you do the Start one, you'll have to write the action script. Okay? But you'll notice that there's a stop here, open, close parentheses, and there's a semicolon. Now, let's take this and just talk about it for a second. What happens is stop, because it's in blue, is a reserved function. Function, F-U-N-C-T-I-O-N. And a function is a area of code that we write that has a block. You'll see one in a minute. This is called a function call. So because it's blue, it means that as soon as we turn the computer on, we inherited this code, or we open Flash, excuse me. We open Flash. That we inherited this code. It was written by other people, and it's been accepted that this is how we're going to do this, and it works. So don't reinvent the wheel, use this. And it says stop, open, close, parentheses. That's what is called a function call. Very important. In English, how do you end every sentence? Period. In Flash programming or ActionScript 3 here, we end every sentence with a semicolon. Now, what this does is that obviously stop means stop, but what are we stopping in Flash? This stop,
the timeline,
the frame, moving from frame to frame. So what happens is it's going to load frame 1 and it's going to stop. Even though we have lots of frames afterwards. Pardon me?
I was going to say if it's on frame 1.
It is on frame 1, but it's going to stop on frame 1. And it's just going to stop and wait. And you'll see why it's going to wait in a minute. All right, now I'm going to bring some code back up here. And I'm going to move all this out of here. Now let me separate this just a little bit. The very first part here is Gable Lawfell underscore BTN. It means button. When you see something like this and it has a dot after it, it's in black, this is what is called an instant name. An instant name. And it's in a very special place. Now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this over here. Now look at this. When I'm using the action script and it's covering my screen, my main stage, I can double click on the light gray and it does a window shade straight up and down. But see, it's still covering part of the library over here. So you can click on the dark gray and it makes a little box over in the corner here. See it? Can you kind of see it? Click on the dark gray top and it'll open it. Or you can stick it down in here and then you can open it and it'll put it right here for us. Now here's Gable Lawfell button. I'm going to click on it. Notice up here it says, right in this upper corner, the first thing it says is that I'm a button. So we didn't create a movie clip or a graphic this time when we made a symbol out of this. We made a button. You're going to learn that a button has 4 states. It's going to only have 4 frames to it. We'll look at it in a minute. But the interesting thing is that you'll see that Gable Lawfell underscore button is a name up here. Now if I remove it and click off of it, notice it says, whoops, it says instant name right there. Can y'all see that? And whoever wrote the program for us here decided we would call it Gable Lawfell underscore BTN. Now, what is an instant name? When we create a button, it is over in the library. Let's go take a look and see if we can see it. Restaurant buttons. Here we go. Here it is. Can you see it right here? And when I click on it, look what it looks like up here. So it's all kind of somewhat put together. So we've already created the button. Now I can double click on it, and here's what the button looks like when it's all assembled and put together. There are 4 states or 4 frames: up, over, down, and hit. Up means that it's just sitting there on the stage. Over means I roll over it and I give it the finger. It'll give it the finger for you. And down means you've clicked on it. And hit is just an area that's been defined for the button to make it hot, so that as soon as I hit that area that's defined by the hit area, the finger starts, supposedly, when we're running it. Watch. We'll zoom in a little bit. All right. The hit area, as soon as that arrow changes to a finger, I've hit that button. See it? Right now it's all the edges. So we just made a copy of the button and stuck it in the hit area is all we did. Now, coming back here, each little part has something different. We'll notice they didn't label this very well. This is the background layer, I believe. Oh, this is the little information. Now, this is a symbol unto itself that you have to learn to animate. They make you animate. That is the information that pops up when you roll over. And you'll notice it says the over part of the button will call this little animation, this symbol that has an animation in it. Notice the A down here. If you look at that and you open your window, what do you think it's going to do? Stop, right? Now there's a bug here. It's supposed to have a semicolon after it. If it does not have it, put it in there. It will not work properly. All right? There's a bug in the way they did the book.
Oh, it's not in the book that way?
Maybe it may not. Some books came in, it doesn't have the semicolon on it, and others do. So there. Now I back out onto the button again. You'll see it there, and I back out to the scene. All right, let's go back to the code now. Oh, so so back here, let me go back to the name again. And I'll put that back in. What this means is, Mr. Hack, what's your first name?
Christopher.
Chris, I knew. Chris, do you have any brothers or sisters?
A stepbrother.
You have a stepbrother. Is he a hack? I need somebody else, sorry. Carol.
Yeah.
What's your last name?
Childers.
Childers? You have any brothers or sisters?
I do.
You do. Now, believe it or not, you are an instant of your parents. You are a child. And literally it's called add a child to the stage. But what's interesting is that you are a Childress. That is the class or family name. So if your mother wanted, or your dad wanted all y'all at a picnic, y'all out at a big picnic or some group thing, and he wanted all you kids to come running at one time, he'd just yell, Childress, come on, get in the car. You would all go. But if he wanted to speak to you as the individual symbol of the child that you are, or instant of the Childress family, he would go, Carol. So up here, this Gable Lawfell button is the instant name for the child of the Gable Lawfell button class or family. You with me? Now, why do we put an instant name on it? It's very simple, because the name is how we're able to talk from the action script code to the stage, back and forth. We use the first name here, or the proper instant name. Question? All right, now that you understand that, let's go back and look at the code for a minute.
It does have a semicolon in the book.
Pardon me?
So you know, there is a semicolon in the book.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's what this means. The highlighted area here is the instant name. So we're talking to that button back and forth on the stage. And now the neat thing is that we're writing this program not for ourselves, but for other people to use, aren't we? This is what is called object-oriented programming. And it's what is known, write this down, as a event-driven language. Excuse me. This means that an event must trigger the action of this program. In the old days, it was very sequential and you didn't get a chance. When you looked at the screen, or the main screen here again, you'll notice that you have 3 buttons. Do you have to select them in order, or can you randomly select them at any chance any order you want? Any order, right? But what happens is when you select a button, or the user selects a button by using the mouse or the keyboard, believe it or not, it is an event is being created. You are saying, I've selected this button, I want something to happen. All right, back into the code. Wherever I hit it. Anybody see where I put it? Yeah. Now, this is where the lecture gets a little longer and fun. So what we're going to do to this button is that we want the code, we want the operating system. I told you all the story about Mom, right? And the operating system?
Yeah.
Right. We're talking about talking to the OS now. That we needed to listen to something so it can tell that a user is interacting with the program. So it's called Add an Event Listener. Now let me give you an example. Pick up your mouse. How many events can be generated with this mouse?
I see there's several.
There are several.
Yeah.
But let's look at it. The very simplest and most known one is the left click is 1. There's a right click 2. If you look on the side, there's a right side button and a left side button. So we got 4 so far. You look at the bottom and you see the little LED light, laser light, that when you push it up it recognizes. You push it down, it recognizes. You push it left, it recognizes it. And you push it to right, it's recognized as an event of this mouse. Not only that, they've done something really interesting. Any of y'all old enough to remember the original mouse with the big ball in the bottom?
Yeah.
Well, they put one on the top now. You got a little tiny ball that you can press as a button. So now we got 9 events. Plus, can you roll that little ball around? Notice how it's moving everything around on the screen? So it will recognize up, down, left, and right. Is that 13 or 14? So 13 or 14 things this mouse will do. Or events it will trigger. Wow. And you just thought it was a left and right clicker, huh? Man, wish you'd taken a whole bunch more, right? No, I'm teasing. Bad joke. So what happens now is that we are adding, so we need to get kind of a little bit, we're adding a listener to that button, but we have to now get specific about what we're listening for, or listening to have happen. The first thing we know is that we want to listen for a mouse event. Already we know there are 13 or 14 mouse events that can happen. So maybe we better qualify that a little bit better. Notice that we have the capital C-L-I-C-K, click. This defaults normally to the left click. Alrighty? So now we got a mouse event that if you move the mouse, this program will pick it up and say, hey, wait a minute, I hear a mouse event happening. And then it says, well, then it hears the click, and it says, oh, I hear a mouse event that is a left click. We're good to go. This we will let into our program now. Now notice how add event listener is in blue. It has the open parentheses and closed parentheses, just like stop. These are called, the information inside is called the parameters that must be sent to it. to permit you to enter into a function we will write called restaurant1. So the first thing is that we have a button. We gave it an instant name. We're just reviewing very quickly. We're adding an event listener to it. It's going to be a specific mouse event that is known as a click. Now there is a lowercase C-L-I-C-K. It is not the same as a capital C-L-I-C-K. This is what is called a strongly typed language. You must spell it correctly or it'll make a mistake. But it's neat because usually it will burp and let you know you made a syntax mistake. And we'll show you some errors in the next little lesson and part here. But notice the comma. So that says we're finished qualifying what we're listening. And now if this is all true and equates to true, then I want you to jump to a function. This is called a function call of restaurant1. Notice that we have function down here in purple, though I just highlight it with blue. This is a reserved word, meaning that we are building a block of code like a paragraph in a book. It's going to be named restaurant1. It is going to have the open close parentheses because it is a function itself. Notice that it has some parameters to say, okay, we will open the door and let you into our code. Notice that what's called the function has a block, what's called the open braces and the closed braces, and code in between here and here. So it starts with the word function. If it qualifies and says, okay, I heard a mouse event, which a click qualifies, and it was called this specific function here, then it will let it in to this block and go to and play is another little function call that's given to us, and it's going to jump to what's called a label, and I'll explain that in a minute. So actually what we're doing is we're jumping to a frame that we've put a label on. We gave a frame like frame 12, frame 20. We put a word in there called label 1. So we qualify. I'll get back to this part, the void, in a second. If we come in, it goes to, notice the double quotes around the word label, and that is green. This is called a literal string. A string, S-T-R-I-N-G. This is a collection of characters that we as a programmer have telling the computer, do not mess with it. Use it exactly as it is. And by default, that if I send a literal string into here, it is going to go to and play. This is a command or a little function that is already written that we inherit when we turn on the flash that says, I am looking for somewhere on the timeline a title of a frame called label 1. Look. This is so cool. Come back down here. Hang on a second. And if I zoom in down here, do I see a content? Look what I just found. They call it content on the layer. But notice that layer content frame 10, there's a little red flag and a word label 1. There's a way you'll learn to label this as double quote label 1. And this is how we talk to it from the code again. So we have to be able to talk back and forth from our main screen back into our code. So there's the label 1 that we saw there. Quickly, we're almost finished. We'll jump there, and then it comes to the end here, and it comes back up here to the void. This is called the return. Void means we're not returning anything out of here. There was no information. We just wanted you to jump somewhere. We will leave you there. But you can write a function that may do addition and give you an answer, or it may be some kind of query to some kind of information, and we need to return something out of this function to run into our code further. We'll talk more about how we do that and these different things. So all we've done then is made a interactive button that will jump around on our timeline here. Let me review very quickly. The very first part of and I'll explain what the rest of the code is in 2 words. We have a stop that stops on the first frame when we load the program or run the program. We have a button with an instant name. that we've added a listener to, and it must be a mouse event of the type left click. If this qualifies and the computer hears this, that you're mucking around with the button and you click it, it's going to jump into Restaurant 1 if you click on this specific button. It runs down, we have a function that we wrote called restaurant 1. We are qualifying that it was an event, and it is a mouse event that will let you into our block or area of code right here. We have, if that is all true, that it go to and plays label 1, which in this scenario we know is actually frame 10. When it finishes, it comes out and it says, that's it, sit there, stop, wait until we hear another button. Now, the rest of the code. Let me expand my window. Notice how I'm doing the windows and expanding them a little bit? Look at the next one. Does it look almost identical? Does this one look almost identical to this one? Yeah. Well, guess what? It is. This is the first button up here. Here's the second button. The code's almost identical except for the name of the instant name of the button. The name of the function has to be different. You can't have two of the same function. And it's going to jump to a different location. So all you do is copy it out and change the names around a little bit. That's how we do code, a lot of it. But if the first one doesn't work and you copy it out, there's an old saying, to error is human. To really screw it up, you need a computer. You know? So, and this is the reason why, because it's so easy to copy, cut, and paste bad code. Now listen to me carefully. You're jumping into becoming junior Elroy Jessen programmers here. And what you're doing is you're learning. Now let me tell you, there's an old axiom in programming. If it works the first time, check it. Something's wrong. You learn through mistakes. It's okay to make an error. The whole thing is set up for debugging your code. There are two types of errors you can make in programming. One is called a syntax. Syntax means language. That we have a built-in, and it's all the blue stuff we see in here. It is a built-in language, and if you misspell it or something, it might be able to find it in the debugger. Well, I'll show you some more in the next lesson next week when we get together again, and I do my next little part of this. It will show and stop and say you've got an error on line so-and-so, I don't understand what's going on, or blah, 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 blah. It's all kinds of neat little miscellaneous weird debugging code things they'll tell you. But you just normally come back and you look in here, and you'll see a few examples later tonight. It won't be in this part recorded lecture, but I'll show you all outside of this. So that is a syntax error, that you misspelled a reserved word in the language here. Then there's what is called a semantic error. Welcome to the human era. Here is the simplest example. It is late at night. A friend calls you up and says, I need a payroll program tomorrow. Can you write me something in Flash? Well, all I need to do is put in the number of hours and multiply it by $10. And you go, sure, I can do that. So you sit down and you start writing your little program, but it's late and you haven't had enough coffee, you're tired, and you're in a hurry. So instead of putting 10 times 40 hours, which then equals $400 to be paid, right? You put 10 plus $40. Now, here's what's interesting. The computer says both are correct, and they are correct, because 10 plus 40 is a true algorithm for addition, and 10 times 40 is a true algorithm for multiplication. So you send it to your friend without checking it, and this is what beta program is all about, is checking for human error. Because obviously the program runs for the most part. There are some bugs. But the main thing they're making sure is that all the output is correct, that the human error is not there. And all of a sudden he writes all these checks, and everybody comes running to him going, what'd you pay me $50 for? I earned $400. Somebody's going to be outside with a sign saying, I program for money or food, because they ain't going to pay you to do it, let me tell you. I program for food. So that is the semantic. So it's either a syntax error or a semantic error. Now, you will fail, and it is good. I thought I was a very good programmer. I've had a consulting company. I programmed for over 30 years before I started teaching. I've written some pretty neat programs in my time. I've made some good money. But let me tell you, till I got in here teaching 13 years ago, or actually more, about 20 years ago now, because I was teaching in the high schools too, every time you write a program, you might see 5 to 12 mistakes, or 0 to 12 mistakes in your program. Every day I'm in here with you, I see 120 plus mistakes. And if you make 5, you can multiply that out. I see over 500 mistakes a day. You better believe I know this program now, because I've been doing this for 5 years now. So, what am I trying to tell you? I am trying to tell you this is where you sit close to somebody. You make a programming buddy, we call it. Because you will get tired and you'll forget just a semicolon in there. And it doesn't terminate and tell the computer to run off and execute this statement. It runs on through itself. And it doesn't work. And you'll look at it for hours and can't see it. It's called target fixation. And you'll get your program buddy and go, what is wrong with it? You go, oh, look, right there. And you go, ah! Don't do that. So it is good to see everyone else's and try to debug everyone else's code, as much code as you can. The more mistakes you get in here, the better you're going to learn it and the better you're going to be. Trust me. How many classes you ever took and says, oh, I want you to make mistakes?
No.
How cool, huh?
And I can remember.
So you're now right in the right place, right?
We could take human.
So don't get frustrated. If you get really, make a couple tries at it, but if you get into trouble, ask the buddy, then raise your hand, I'll come running over here and I'll explain it to the best of my abilities and show you a couple demonstrations and then move on. Learn on each one. It's okay. Any questions then? That terminates this.
Do you always have a blank line, skip a complete line before your next line?
This is what is called white space, and white space is excellent because it is for us humans. The computer doesn't use it. It doesn't need
so
it.
it's for our eyes.
It's for us to understand that this is one section of code right here. This is a different section that we're dealing. Now at the very bottom, we had this flash click to go to stop at frame. What a name for a function. And all that is was the main menu button. And why didn't they just name it main menu? I don't know. I didn't write the program. Wait, this is just a demo program. All right. If there are no more questions, that ends my... Yes, one question, Kurt.
I noticed in between the braces,
Yes.
it's like the information is on its own separate line. Is that a permanent, that's...
This is by convention that if I had more lines of code, every time it sees a semicolon, then you put the next one on the next line because it's a new statement. It's like sentences, but it's not like, this is the whole paragraph in here, but it has to be sequential. One command, one command, one command.
Why is the go-to not right after that previous bracket?
Here.
19, line 19.
Here.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this belongs...
No, go to line 19.
Line 19. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So
Well-
at the end of line 19, there's a
If they're
brace.
void, can you just,
Why is not go-to and play on?
On the same line,
yeah.
Yeah.
do you see this little right here?
Yeah.
That's the beginning of the block. Now watch this. Up here is a check mark. Do you see the check mark right here? That is a simple test to see if the code works. See the compiler error flash up here? It also lives over here. There were no errors in this code. Now, this is shortcut programming. If I want to format it, see this little next thing, the squiggle lines that look like kind of indentions and stuff? I click on it, look where it jumped. See how that works? Now that's formal code. That's called formal coding, not compact code. So this is why this is the function call. This is the block that it falls into if everything qualified on the parameters going in. This is the code inside. Now listen carefully. I'll tell you this a dozen times in this class and next class. The next class really is the programming class, but I'm introducing the concepts to you now. The functions are small bits of code, not more than 10 or 12 lines of code. If it has any more, it's too big. It's too complicated. We want to give it the big kiss. And I have changed it because stupid is not a word in my language. Originally, it used to be for all its old programs, keep it simple, stupid. But now it means keep it simple and short. So you want to keep all functions simple and short. You can have functions call functions from inside this. So each one's clear. Also, a last part of the lecture here to introduce you to programming is that you want your functions to be what is called robust. That is that we can use it for multiple things and use this. It's dynamic code, it's robust. We can use it in other programs. So why rewrite code? Why reinvent the wheel? So we will talk more in our next class, not his class, but next semester, about how we write functions to are more effective. Today, in this class, all we will do is mimic and try to explain what's going on throughout the rest of this. All right? So that takes care of that. Any other questions? Well, thank you.